Hello, everybody. Today, we will continue our lecture on topic 3, which is the um, volumetric properties of pure fluids. Okay, so there's a correction here. Pure fluids. I would like to acknowledge Associate Professor Roy Carpio for the slides. And today, we are here. Okay, we're going to discuss the irreversible process for ideal gas state. Just a quick recap of the previous video, we answered sample problems related to the use of the equations for the different processes dealing with ideal gas mechanically reversible non-flow. All right, today let's move on to the next topic. So for irreversible processes, previously we dealt with the reversible processes, but today let's start the irreversible process for ideal gas state. So for delta U and delta H, the property changes for these uh, delta U and delta H are valid regardless of the process, meaning whether they're reversible or irreversible, both in closed and open system, they apply equally since these property changes are state functions. But for the work we of an irreversible process, we can calculate them as follows. So there's a difference between calculating the work for uh, whether you're work producing or you have a work consuming process. So when we say work producing, it means work is generated or work is done by the system. When we say work consuming, it means work is required by the system or work is done on the system. So we're talking about the irreversible work, and we also call that the work actual. On the other hand, when we're talking about the reversible work, we call that the work ideal. So to convert from work reversible or the work ideal to the work actual or the work irreversible, we multiply that value by the efficiency if the process is work producing. All right. So it means that, for example, um, your work is 100 kilowatts, work reversible is 100 kilowatts, and your efficiency is 30%. So that means the work actual is 30 kilowatts. So it's lesser than the work ideal. And that is true for the work producing. So as I mentioned, work reversible is also called work ideal. But it's a different case when we have a work consuming process. For work consuming, instead of multiplying, we divide the work by the efficiency. Okay, so we divide the reversible or ideal work by the efficiency. So we're consuming the work actual is greater than the work ideal. So if you can imagine the efficiency is less than 1. So any number when divided by less than 1 would become bigger than the original, right? So the work actual is greater. All right. So this is how I would imagine it. Say for example, imagine like a plate. I don't remember if it's the philosopher Plato, but there's an ideal world. Okay, so imagine there's an ideal world where everything is perfect and ideal, or we can say reversible. So in the ideal world, we have say a turbine that generates work. So in the ideal work, the work generated by the turbine is perfect, therefore it's the maximum. But in the real world, which is here, okay, the turbine here would not would also the work produced by the turbine here is would always be lesser than the work produced in that ideal world. On the other hand, if we have a compressor, for example, in the in the ideal world, in Plato's ideal world, that compressor would just require a very the minimum amount of work. But here in the actual world, which is the um not which is the real world, the compressor would require lots amount of work or lots amount of electricity. So um that's how I remember how to um differentiate between the ideal and the actual work. Now we have the real gas versus ideal gas. So previously we always dealt with the ideal gas in this lecture, but today let's begin discussing real gases. So they deviate from ideal gas behavior significantly at states near the saturation region and critical point. But before that, um, so real gases, okay. If you will remember, for an ideal gas, we made assumptions like there's negligible intermolecular forces of attraction between the molecules, and also the volume of each molecule can be taken as zero. But for real gases, these assumptions are, we don't make these assumptions, meaning we consider the intermolecular forces attraction between the molecules and also the volume. So there are states wherein we can it's kind of safe to assume ideal gas behavior. For example, if we have high temperature and low pressure. But for states near the saturation region or the critical point, as you can imagine, the critical point would be a high pressure point. So those are the regions wherein it's not safe to assume ideal gas behavior. And we will discuss it more in the next slides. We can account for the deviation of the real gas from the ideal gas using a correction factor, and we call it compressibility factor using the symbol Z or Z. Let's take a look at water as an ideal gas. Okay, so this is the temperature volume diagram of water. So we have the saturated region in this curve right here. And then these lines, like pink lines here, are isobars. So these refer to lines of constant pressure. So there's a shaded region here wherein it says that ideal gas. Okay. So in this region, steam or water vapor can be treated as an ideal gas with less than 1% error. So when I zoom in right here, as you can see, um, the numbers refer to the percent error from the approximation of ideal gas. Okay, so it means that the percent error when compared to the ideal gas. However, so still at pressures below 10 kilopascal. So let's look at 10 kilopascal. This is the um this line right here refers to the pressure 10 kilopascal, and anything below that line, right, refers to pressures below 10 kilopascal. So below that, as you can see, the numbers would refer to 0 or zero point 0.1. So we can say that at pressures below 10 kilopascal, the percent error is less than 0.1%, which is negligible. However, at higher pressures, more than 10 kilopascals, ideal gas assumption yields an acceptable error, particularly in the vicinity of the critical point and saturated vapor line. So where is the pressure above 10 kilopascals? So it's above this line right here. And as you can see, near the saturated region line, we have numbers that are greater than zero point 0.1. So we have 1.6, 0.5. Well, zero point 0.5 is still in the region of ideal gas approximation of less than 1%. So uh, beyond that, we have percent error more than 1%. Just like here, we have 7.6 and so on and so forth. And the numbers really blow up when we get nearer the critical point, which is this point, the top of the saturated. Um, okay. So the numbers I mean the percent error becomes more and more uh higher, and it means that the real gas behavior is deviates further away from the ideal gas behavior. So again, at very low pressures, gases approach ideal behavior regardless of their temperature. We can conclude that at very, very low pressures, we can assume real gases as behaving like ideal gas. We have said that gases follow the ideal gas equation closely at low pressure and high temperature, but what exactly constitutes low pressure or high temperature? Okay, so um, I guess this question is asking how do you judge whether the temperature is low or temperature is high for a gas? And we will answer that at the later part of the lecture. But let's move on to the different ways on how we can approximate or predict or obtain the real gas properties. So again, this is not the ideal gas properties. We're talking about the real gas properties. So we have three ways: compressibility charts, equation of state, and estimated properties. Let's talk about the compressibility factor. Okay. As mentioned, the definition of the compressibility factor is the deviation from ideal gas behavior. And in mathematical terms, we're actually comparing the volumes of the two. It's the volume of the actual or the real gas divided by the volume of the ideal gas. That's why it's called the compressibility, so because compression more or less refers to the volume. So if um we can also write that as the PV over RT. Okay. So when we um transpose our PV to the other side of the equation, okay, so we get PV equal to ZRT, right? So why is this true? Because if we have an ideal gas, this will just be one, and it will be the ideal gas equation, right? So Z would refer always to the ratio between the real and the ideal gas. And the farther we move from one or from unity, it means that the more the gas deviates from ideal behavior. Okay? Let's look at the figures on the right. If we have z equal to 1, um, the behavior is ideal. Okay, so as you can see, there's no compared to the other figures, the arrows mean there's just normal. Okay, there's no attraction whatsoever. But if Z is less than 1, so that means that the actual or real volume is less than the ideal. It means there's strong attraction between the molecules. There's strong intermolecular forces of attraction. Okay. On the other hand, if Z is greater than 1, um, it means the volume of the real gas is greater than the ideal gas. It means there's strong repelling forces. Okay. The molecules don't want to be near each other. That's why the volume is higher. For Z less than 1, the molecules want to be near each other. That's why the volume is lesser for the ideal gas. And this shows the compressibility factor chart. Okay. So basically, it's a mapping of the Z versus the pressure. So Z on the y-axis and the pressure on the x-axis. And for example, um, you want to get the Z for methane at 1000 psia, you simply read from the graph. Of course, you have to know the temperature as well. So for example, at negative 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. So you can read from the graph using this chart. And what do you notice? At very low pressure, regardless of the temperature, so near zero, the Z is nearing the value of 1. But as we move away uh, from the origin, okay, at high pressures, the Z deviates from 1. Okay. But at high pressure and high temperature, the deviation is small. So the compressibility factor would be available for different gases, like we have for methane on the left and propane for the on the right. So next we discuss the virial equation of state. So the virial equation of state, okay, is actually a power series. Alright, so it's another way to approximate the compressibility factor Z. So again, we have one way is by compressibility factor charts um, available from the literature, and another way is by using the virial equation of state to calculate for Z. So it's a power series, as you can see um, on the slide, and we can truncate, meaning we cut, because it goes on to it can go on to infinity, but reasonable approximation can be made if we truncate the power series into two terms. Okay, so this is the two-term virial equation. It can be applied to vapors at subcritical. When we say subcritical, it's way below the critical temperature and up to their saturation pressure. Rewriting the, if we divide the right hand side of the equation, okay, by, sorry, not divide, but rather express volume in terms of P over RT. So instead of expressing it in terms of volume, okay, because as you can see, volume is on the denominator of the power series, we can express the virial equation in terms of pressure. Okay, so simply just substituting P, RT over P with V. Okay, we can also truncate the power series into three terms, and this is applicable for pressures above the range of applicability of equation 2. So equation 2 is for subcritical temperature or temperatures below the temperatures below the critical temperature up to saturation pressure. So on the other hand, the three-term virial equation can be applied to pressures above the applicability, so above the saturation pressure, but below the critical pressure. So I hope that's clear. Um, so here, the pressure for the two-term virial equation should be below the saturation pressure, but for the three-term, it can be above the saturation pressure, but still below the critical pressure. We can also, yeah, so it can be solved directly for pressure, but it's expressed right here in volume. So can you imagine how can we solve this equation? Actually, the approach is by iteration, right? And we'll demonstrate that in some of the problems. So how do we estimate? Okay, so how do we estimate the uh, Z? So the initial estimate is the ideal gas. Okay, we start there and then we iterate. Okay, we iterate from there. So as you can see, um, the Z becomes the volume I plus 1, and then uh, the rest of the volume here is the V sub I. But don't worry, it will be demonstrated later on how to apply this equation. The next question is, okay, so we can use the real equation of state to calculate for the compressibility factor, but what are the coefficients B, C, D, and so on and so forth? I mean, these are unknown values as of now. So here, that's the next topic, virial coefficient B and C. So if, for example, we have this graph for B and C for nitrogen. So it gives the approximate value of the virial coefficients B and C. So some observations for B, the coefficient B, as we increase the T, okay, so as we increase the T, it the coefficient B increases monotonically with temperature, but reaches a maximum value. But for C, it's more difficult to establish. There's a different curve. All right, so both of them start with negative values that increase. Right? But for C, it starts with negative, but at low temperature, it passes through a maximum and thereafter decreases with slowly increasing with T. So aside from the graph, there are also tables showing or giving the coefficients B and C for um, different gases or substances. So just additional information, what is the relevance of B and C, the coefficients B and C? As mentioned, they are functions of temperature for a given gas. Okay. Um, so the term B over V accounts for the interaction between pairs of molecules, while the term C over V squared accounts for three-body interaction. So let me, so this one, right? So B over V accounts for the two-body or a pair of molecule interaction. And then C over V accounts for the three-body interaction. And if we have D over V cube, okay, this would account for a four-body interaction and so on and so forth. So remember when we define compressibility factor, we showed the figure right here wherein there's a molecular force, the Z would depend on the level of attraction or repulsion between the molecules. The virial equation terms account for those interactions. So this is for a two-body, three-body, four-body, and so on and so forth. That's why we can approximate the Z by truncating. So meaning we just consider the two-body interaction because that kind of interaction would be greater than the three and four-body interaction. So, and we can also truncate up to the third term because compared to the four-body interaction and so on and so forth, the three-body interaction is happens more statistically happens more frequently than the four-body interaction. So it means that the contributions of the higher ordered terms decrease rapidly. Their contribution to Z. Okay, so that's um, the relevance of each of the term in the virial equation. All right. For now, we will skip this equation and skip this example problem and move on to the cubic equation of state. Okay, so this is the next type of um, or next method in approximating real gases. So let me go back to this one. So the first we discuss is compressibility charts, the approximation of Z, but we can also approximate Z using the virial equation. And next, we move on to equation of state. So the first is the cubic equation of state. Well, actually, I'm sure you're familiar with this example is an example of equation state. We have van der Waals equation of state for real gas. So for cubic equation of state, it's cubic in the specific volume. So it does not just apply to gases, but also apply to liquids. So, and the volume may have three roots. It can be, all can be real or two can be imaginary and one real. And as imaginary roots, they would always occur in pairs. So um, if two are imaginary, because automatically they occur in pair. All right. So to illustrate this better, let's talk about the van der Waals equation of state. So this is the van der Waals equation of state. I'm sure that you have used this before. A and B. So it looks very similar to the ideal gas equation, but we have the constants A and B, which are the van der Waals constants. So in the ideal gas equation, remember that we did not consider any intermolecular forces of attraction, and we did not consider the volume occupied by the molecules. And these two assumptions are actually incorporated to the van der Waals equation. The term A over V squared accounts for the intermolecular forces of attraction, while B accounts for the volume occupied by the molecules. And notice that if the constants B and Z zero out, you will get the ideal gas equation. So if these are zero. Okay, so aside from the van der Waals equation, we also have other cubic equation of state. We have the Redlich-Kwong, Suave, Redlich-Kwong, Peng-Robinson. Okay, the generic or the general equation for cubic equation of state is this one. And the values for A or alpha A as a function of t would please refer to this column right here for the different cubic equation of state. And then for we also have a value for sigma and epsilon and what's this Greek symbol? Omega. Omega, okay. Psi and Z critical. Okay. So to calculate for um say for example this term alpha as a function of t, you can use this equation right here. Okay. Uh and then for b, you can use this equation right here. Let's take van der Waals an example. This term alpha as a function of t is 1. Okay. And epsilon is 0, sigma is 0, and you will end up with the van der Waals equation. But for Reddick-Wong, okay, t sub r, uh, the alpha as a function of t is equal to t sub r raised to negative 1/2. For Schwab-Redlich-Wong, you will use this equation. And this equation is a function of tr and the eccentric factor, which we'll be discussing later. And also, um, right now I have not introduced the meaning of reduced, okay, the reduced uh, temperature. So later I will discuss it. And also the meaning of eccentric factor. So anyway, just presenting this table right here. And this is we can use it to form the other cubic equation of states. Okay. Okay, so just an additional info. You can for Swab Redlich Wong and Peng Robinson, the alpha t, okay, can also be calculated using these equations 12 and 13. Okay. So you can also form the equation or complete the equation using equation 12 and 13. Anyway, we'll demonstrate using some of the equation of states later in the example. So how do we get the properties, the critical properties, TC, PC, and also so not yet I mean the eccentric factor, small letter omega. We can use this table from Smith and Bannes, Appendix A. So let me zoom in. For different substances or species, we have the molar mass, eccentric factor, critical temperature, critical pressure, Z sub C. Okay, so in the equation, there's where did I find? Yeah, this one, Z sub C. Although this is different. This is the Z sub C for the cubic equation of state. So this is Z critical, V critical. The last column I can't read. Let me check that later. Okay. So let's discuss the volume roots of the CEOS because um, as you can see, volume is in the denominator and volume is inside the factors. Okay. How do we solve this volume? Usually by iteration. Okay. So if you have isotherms greater than the critical temperature, so this is the critical point of the PV diagram. So this is the saturation curve. If the isotherms are the lines right there. If the isotherm is greater than the critical temperature, um, solution for the volume would contain solution for V at any positive value of P, okay, for any positive value of P, yields one real root and two imaginary roots. Okay. We, from there, only the real root has a physical meaning. So when you solve this for temperatures greater than critical temperature, you will get one real root and two imaginary. But for isotherms, T equal to critical temperature, you will get three real roots, all equal to the critical volume at the pressure equal to the critical pressure. Okay? For any other pressure, it will give one real root and two imaginary. So only the real root has a physical meaning. Okay? So if the at temperature is equal to critical temperature and the pressure equal to critical pressure, you will get three real roots equal to Vc. If for isotherms less than the critical temperature, you may have one or three roots depending on the pressure. The smallest root is the liquid-like. Okay, so the smallest volume, we call it the liquid-like volume. The largest root um, is the vapor-like volume. Okay. The third root lying in between has no significance. So you're talking about the curve below the critical temperature. So depending on the pressure, you may get three roots. So let's talk about the vapor-like roots of the cubic equation of state. Beginning with the cubic equation of state, if we multiply it by V minus B over RT and simplify further, it will lead to this equation. And we can solve it by trial and error or iteration. The initial estimation of the volume is the ideal gas value, RT over P. Okay. We can also convert the equation in terms of the compressibility factor Z because here it's in terms of V. So we substitute the following into the equation to convert it to equation 18, which is in terms of the compressibility factor. And similarly, it can be solved by trial or error. The initial estimate for Z is 1 for ideal gas. So once we know Z, then we can solve for the volume using the equation ZRT over P. Next, we discuss the liquid-like roots of the cubic equation of state. We can do this by rearranging the general COS such that V is in the numerator. So we begin with the original cubic equation of state, rearrange this so that all the V is in the numerator. So this is that equation after rearranging. And then we can solve for trial and error. The initial estimate of V is P. Okay, so what? So B is, we can solve for B as this one. Okay. The omega times R T sub C over T sub C. Okay. Okay, so let's skip the example problems and later we'll have another video for the example problems. So now we move on to the next um, topic, which is going back to the compressibility charts. Okay, compressibility charts. So recall the compressibility chart or compressibility factor for methane and propane. Wherein we have on the y-axis we have Z, on the x-axis we have P, and then we have isotherms. Okay, so for low pressure, the Z is near the value 1. Now we define or introduce reduced parameter. So a while ago, we encountered from the general cubic equation of state the T sub R. So reduced parameters are corrected or normalized conditions of T and P relative to their critical conditions. Uh, a while ago, there's a question. I I want to go back to that question. Let me listen. What exactly constitutes low pressure or high temperature? So for a gas, how do we judge whether the temperature is low, the high, I'm sorry, high and the pressure is low? Because for example, if you have for example, you have air, okay, can we say that negative 100 degrees Celsius is a low temperature? Yes, for most substances, it's low temperature, negative 100 degrees Celsius, but not for air because um, air or nitrogen can still be treated as an ideal gas at this temperature and at atmospheric pressure with an error less than 1%. Because the critical temperature of nitrogen is negative 147 degrees Celsius. So negative 100 degrees is not really low for air. It meaning the definition of high or low temperature, high or low pressure would depend on the substance. It varies with the substance. So how can we say that the temperature is low or high or pressure is low or high? We introduce the reduced parameters. So we normalize the conditions of T and P with respect to their critical conditions. So how do we solve it? We just simply divide with the critical, say for pressure, divide with critical pressure, divide with critical temperature, and V divide with critical V. And to get the reduced values. So when we do that, when we um, express the substances in terms of their reduced temperature, pressure, and volume, experiments show that compressibility factors behave in us similarly when we use their reduced pressure. And this is the theorem of corresponding states. So the two-parameter theorem of corresponding states says that all fluids, when compared at the same reduced temperature and pressure, have about the same value of Z, meaning they deviate from ideal gas behavior to the same degree. Okay, so let's look at this chart. Compressibility factor is a function of the reduced temperature and pressure. So Z is on the y-axis, reduced pressure is on the x-axis. And what can you see? Our compressibility chart is almost the same with different gases, methane, ethylene, ethane, propane. Okay, so they form the same curve at their reduced pressure. Okay, so we can use like just one graph for all of the substances as long as we use the reduced pressure and temperature. So it's TR. So the isotherms here are isotherms of at reduced temperature. Okay. Because and this is by experimentation. And they named that observation the theorem of corresponding states. So we only show uh, the compressibility charts from at low pressures, but what does it look like when the the reduced pressure is greater than 10? Okay, so this is the compressibility chart for reduced pressure up to 7. But actually, this is how it would look like when we deal with reduced pressure greater than 10. So it extends further to the right and upwards. Okay, so um, as you can see, the deviation from ideality is higher because as we increase the pressure, the reduced pressure also increases. And the other figures on the right are just zoom in values of this part right here. So this is the reduced pressure again until 7, and this one is reduced pressure until 1. Okay. So you can use this to approximate Z. What are the observations at low pressure? Reduced pressure is at low pressure wherein the reduced pressure is significantly less than 1. The gas behaves as an ideal gas regardless of the temperature. At high temperatures, wherein the reduced temperature is greater than 2, the behavior can be assumed as ideal gas, except for reduced pressure greater than 1. Right? The deviation of ideal gas of a gas from ideality is greater at the vicinity of the critical point. So what do we mean by that? As you can see, let's zoom in. Okay. So when we are nearing the reduced temperature less than 2, high temperature greater than 2, but PR less than 1. Greater than 2 and less than 1. So this is the um, isotherm for that. Higher than 2 and PR less than 1. So this is the graph for PR less than 1. So the value is very near 1. Okay. And then low pressure. So if the pressure is PR is really less than um 1, so this is that area there. Okay, waves and an ideal gas. So let's see. Where is the critical point when what's the value when the temperature and pressure is the critical point? What do you think? When it's equal to 1, right? So the deviation is greatest. So let's see. TR equal to 1. Okay, TR equal to 1, PR equal to 1. So it's really far away from Z equal to 1. So this is your point right here. So let's move on to, so that is the two parameter corresponding state. We're dealing with TR and PR, but the next one is three parameter theorem of corresponding state. This is where the ascending factor enters the picture. So all fluids having the same values of eccentric factor when compared at the same temperature and pressure have the same value of Z, and all deviate from the ideal gas behavior about the same degree. So eccentric factor is a characteristic of the molecular structure and can be solved using this equation. But what is the eccentric factors really? So we know that it's a molecular structure, and this is the equation. You can solve it using this one, but actually it refers to the non-sphericity of the molecule. Non-sphericity or the eccentricity of the molecule. So fluids that have the same value of eccentric factor will behave alike at the same conditions of reduced pressure and reduced temperature. So that's the three-parameter theorem of corresponding states. All right, so let's skip the examples and move on to the next topic, generalized correlations. So let me move back to the graph. So we're finished with compressibility charts, equation of state. We move on to the estimated properties. Let me just check that. Okay, so generalized correlations. So equation state expressing Z as a function of TR and PR are generalized because um, they are applicable to all gases and liquids. Again, what do I mean by that? It means that this one, when we have graphs, okay, like this one and this one, they are expressed in terms of TR and PR, um, and they show Z, okay, in terms of TR and PR. These are generalized because we can use it for different gases. But now we're going to talk about generalized correlation. So what do we mean by correlation? Generalized correlation for gases and for liquids. Correlation means refers to the relationship between two variables or two or more variables. The first correlation is the Pitzer correlation for the compressibility factor. So we have this equation, this is the Pitzer correlation. The Z or compressibility factor is equal to Z naught plus eccentric factor multiplied by Z1. And Z naught and Z1 are functions of temperature, reduced temperature and pressure. The most widely used generalized correlation are the Lee-Kessler tables or Lee-Kessler correlation. But it's more accurate for non-polar or slightly polar gases, but not accurate for polar gases. So for non-polar or slightly polar gases, the percent error is less than 2 to 3%. But for polar gases, the error is large. You can view this in your Smith and Vaness 7th or 8th edition. I think Appendix E for the 7th edition. These are the Lee-Kessler correlation tables. So what is this? On the left, we have table for Z naught. On the right, we have a table for Z1. And then you can get their values for Z naught by reading the PR. The columns refer to the PR and the rows refer to the PR. So for example, if you have um, PR equal to 1.5, PR equal to zero point 0.3, then the value of Z naught is 0.4335, right there. So do that for Z naught and Z1, and then go back to this equation get the eccentric factor from the Appendix A, properties of substance of pure species, and you will get Z. Again, consider first the applicability, whether it's a polar, non-polar, or polar gas. And we also have the Pitzer correlation for the second virial coefficient. Using the truncated virial equation, truncated up to the second term, okay, where PR is P over TC, TR is P over TC, rearranging that to solve for P and T. We input that into the equation. So we just simply express T and P in terms of the reduced temperature and pressure and critical temperature and pressure. And then we substitute B hat into the equation. So we let BPC over RTC to be B hat and input that in the equation. We now have the Pitzer correlation based on the second virial coefficient. So B hat is equal to B naught plus eccentric factor times B1. So they propose, Pitzer and coworkers propose a second correlation. Okay, so B hat. Meaning they gave a table for the values of B naught and B1. Sorry, not table, but rather equations. Okay, they gave equations to solve for B naught and B1 as a function of the reduced temperature. Okay, so combining equation 27 and 30. So what's equation 27? This one. And equation 30, combining the original Pitzer correlation with the second virial Pitzer correlation. So we get this one, very analogous to the original equation. Okay. So where we can solve the B naught and B1 as mentioned using the equations, and Z1 and Z naught by using the equations, the given equations. Okay, so I hope that you can um, understand how to use this equation. So you can either use this form, okay, and solve for B naught and B1 as a function of TR. Or you can solve individually Z1 and Z naught and use this form. So either way, it's the same. So like the parent correlation, you can use it for nonpolar or slightly polar gases, but not really for polar gases. Alright, so in this figure, they plotted Z naught as a function of PR. So if we compare the correlation of Z naught, the virial coefficient correlation is represented by the straight lines. Okay, and by the Lee-Kessler correlation by the points. See, so these are the virial coefficient correlation, and the Lee-Kessler are the points. They are almost the same. Okay, in the region above the dashed line, the correlation, so above this dashed line, the correlation differs by less than 2%. But beyond that, okay, so beyond the dashed line, um, the correlation is the percent difference is higher. Okay. So meaning we can also use this figure to check whether we can use the or the whether the two agrees, whether the virial coefficient correlation agrees with uh the original Lee Kessler correlation. And they did not stop there. Pitzer and colleagues made the third viral coefficient correlation. Okay, so they express the third viral coefficient in terms of rho. Okay, so in terms of density, and then express it in terms of the reduced pressure and reduced temperature. Okay, and then substitute let b hat again, the same with the second virial correlation, let b hat equal to that, and introduce the term c hat. So this is for the third virial coefficient. So we have another coefficient in terms of, I mean, correlation in terms of c hat. C naught and C1 can be calculated by this. Alright, so that can also be used to estimate Z. Okay, so this figure shows where ideal gas approximation lies between, we have the figure of, we have a graph of PR versus TR in logarithmic, where the PR is logarithmic, and we have a plot of C naught equal to 1.02 and Z naught equal to 0.98. So approximately in between them, the value you can up, you can estimate the ideal gas equation, um, or rather, ideal gas equation is a reasonable approximation. Okay, so we'll skip the next examples and proceed with the generalized correlations for liquids. So previously, the generalized correlation presented were for gases, but now we're also going to talk about the correlations for liquids. Um, we can use the cubic equation of state, but the results are not really accurate. And therefore, we use this generalized correlation. The first one is the Racket equation. So Racket proposed an equation for volumes of saturated liquids. So this is for saturated liquids. We multiply the V sub C with Z sub C raised to 1 minus TR raised to this value. Or another form is this equation. Again, we can determine the critical properties from the table in Smith and Van Ness. The second correlation for liquids is the Lydersen, Greencorn, and Hogan um, in 1955. Well, it's earlier than the Racket. Um, and this is to estimate the liquid volume. Okay. So as you can see, this is in terms of the reduced density. Reduced density is the rho over the rho C, or it's the reciprocal of the, when we convert that to the volume, of course, it would be VC over V, or the V critical of the volume. A better procedure is to make use of a single non-liquid by the identity. So if we know the one, we compare with the liquid with known identity, we can express the volume of the unknown volume of the liquid, okay, in terms of the um, volume of the known. Uh, I mean the known liquid volume. Okay, so it will give good results and requires only experimental data that are usually available. Okay, so again, this equation V2 refers to the required volume. V1 is the known volume. And rho R1, rho R2 are the reduced densities. You can read from this figure. Okay, this figure is rho R over on the y-axis and PR on the x-axis. You have different lines referring to the reduced temperature. So the procedure will be demonstrated in an example. So by the way, okay, so some examples um, would contain links to videos. You can also view that. Those are my old videos. All right, so now that we have finished the lecture part, the next video will show the solutions to the sample problems.